So I've learned a thing or two about building a connected brand. And one thing I've just recently learned is how important building a connection to the self is to building a connected brand. The connection to the self is the key to unlocking everything you do with intentionality. And my guests today are not only partners in business, but partners in life. They have put together their many years of combined experiences to build this beautiful body of work that helps you connect with the self. It's called Superabound. Hello. How are you both?
So good. So happy to be here. And we're coming to you from our yoga and meditation space. And we're going to talk about connected brands and superabundance, how to create it in your life and business.
I love it. Well, first off, the space is gorgeous. It's beautiful. There's got to be a story here behind this space. Tell me all the things.
Yeah. So when we moved into this house, we had this random old barn on our property that you could literally see through it. You could see and you could see all the squirrels and the raccoons living in it.
It's pretty scary.
It was just something else. And we had some friends over one day and we said, like, what's the wildest thing we could think of doing? And we had a friend who said, you should make it the wellness barn, like make it a yoga space in the top and then like build a sauna where the garage used to be. And that is exactly what we did. And now this is probably our favorite space. It's my favorite space on the property. It's quiet and it has a door that locks so our kids can't get us if we don't want them to.
You can still kind of see them in the house, but there's a yard to traverse.
I love it. Yeah, you can see their impending incoming. That is so. So was this? Let's just talk about how a wellness barn came into your orbit. Was this like a game plan that you both had, or a vision that you had both had about what your lives would look like and what container, quite literally, would house your lives?
I mean, we came together, we first met in a meditation community, a spiritual community. So that was always a part of our shared interest and passion. Erin was a yoga teacher, and we were both very much into how do you live life at the highest level. So we had always kind of had that in our mind. At the same time, neither of us really ever had all that much money. So we didn't really think about like, what sort of property shall we build kind of thing.
On the estate.
Yeah. What shall we develop?
On the estate. Yeah. The groundskeepers will take care of the sauna and the children, quite frankly.
Yes, the nannies, our team of nannies. That was never in the mix, but everything kind of came together in a weird way around COVID, where I was at Shopify and the world was shutting down and the Shopify stock was going through the roof because everyone said, well, if the world is shutting down, then e-commerce must become the only way that anyone will ever buy anything ever again. And so then the fact that I was at Shopify when I was meant really good things for what we could do with the raccoon hotel that we were gifted when we bought the house here.
And at the same time, I was building the coaching business. At that time, I was only coaching on relationships, so partnerships, some interpersonal stuff, but mainly romantic partnerships. And everybody who was in lockdown was suddenly stuck with, and very face-to-face with all of the issues that were happening in their relationships. So at the same time as the stock was rising, my business sort of tripled in revenue kind of overnight.
Everyone needed relationship coaching.
And we also knew that at some point things would open up again and we would probably want to have clients come and stay with us. So now when we have VIP coaching retreats here, they can come and take a sauna and have a meditation bar. And we have another building that is like the apartment space. That's also our office when there's no one here. And we feel really lucky that we get to kind of share this with people in person now.
It's so wonderful to hear how you've structured and built your lives to produce the best results in yourselves as individuals, in you as a couple, as an entity in the relationship that you're working on, and then also in the business context of your relationship and the relationships that you're all working on managing as well too. It's just remarkable to hear. And I'd love to also hear how you got to this concept, superabound, which, like, let's start with the word superabound. Let's talk about that.
It is a real word, which
Didn't make it up.
we didn't make it up. It's a real word.
When you told me about it, I Googled it, and Google did validate it's a real word.
It's an old timey word.
Yeah, it's more old time.
It often refers to like overflowing with abundance, sometimes even maybe too much. And when we were working on our book and trying to sort of put some names to some of our tools, the people we were working with on that branding offered this up, and we were both like, superabound. Like, it's on the edge of almost too much. But when you direct that energy well, and you use your resources in ways that actually are supportive to you and what you're trying to create, it's a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful thing. And we were, like I said, kind of brought together in a spiritual context. And when you have that moment of clarity, those kind of mystical revelations, or even just that stillness when you're sitting in awe of the universe, the night sky, the ocean, whatever it might be, you come in touch with the fact that the world in which we live tends to be quite small in those moments when you experience that vastness or that breakthrough in your own awareness. And that's kind of the nod that we have with the name, that reality is far more abundant, super abundant, than we usually think about. So we want to lead with that awareness.
I love that. And I love the acknowledgement of the fact that there is an overabundance, right? There's something that can be in excess in your life. And then there's an underabundance. And folks know what it feels like to be in both of those extremes. But it's really important to know and recognize and feel like when you're in that flow state of abundance, right? Where you have just the right amount of abundance and you're building a life for yourself with all of the attributes and all of the qualities. You're using that abundance to build the life for yourself, I should say, with all the attributes and qualities that you would like to see. And I find that a really interesting place for all facets of creators to be in is to have all the right tools. I'm in the right place at the right time. Now, how do I bring to life the vision that I feel and think and or see for myself or for my brand in the future?
And you hit on the word that we start and finish with, and that's vision. It is really the heart and soul of leadership. And it's how you can have the biggest impact at your company, with your team, in your career, no matter where you are, almost in the hierarchy, the official hierarchy, because visionary leadership is so powerful and so rare often that when you express it, it can be picked up, it can be run with by other people. And so in our coaching work, we always start with, what is it that you want to create? What is your vision? What is the greatest possible outcome that could come from all of this? Like, let's dream here. And from there, we'll turn it into concrete steps, but let's not start with the concrete steps. Anyone can do that. But actually having a vision for what you want to create, why it matters, why other people will be moved by it and able to get on board, that's where powerful leadership begins.
What I find so interesting, I mean, I've been in the startup space for quite some time now. I'm not going to date myself, but we're on the back half of 2 decades worth of startup life. You've worked for amazing companies as well, Steve. That's how we came to know one another, who've also been this part of the startup life. You mentioned Shopify. I'm sure that happens more often.
All the time.
That startup life is usually because some visionary incubated a future state. We've been privileged enough to get to work for some visionary leaders who had the skills to take that vision and Is it articulate? Is it move? I'm not quite sure what the quality is for a visionary leader who has visions and a visionary leader who can turn those visions into discrete deliverables for their team. In your practice, what do you notice as the key differentiators between those visions that can bring their vision to life?
Well, I think one of Erin's qualities that she embodies so well is over communication. And so many people have their vision, they have their desires, they have their expectations locked away in their brain, or maybe they'll say it once or twice and think they've done their job. But as you and I have experienced with the leaders that we've worked with, it's constant. It's from every possible, it's from the walls, it's from the wiki, it's from the product, like it's everywhere. It's in the town halls, the company meetings. There's no escaping it. That's how you create a container for people to find themselves within.
Yeah, there's something about, we use this tool called visionary practice, where basically you take some time every day to connect with that future version of you who's lighting the important lanterns on that path, on that beautiful mountain of your big vision. But then it isn't just a feel-good exercise where you're like, oh, I snuggled with my future self. It's actually like, okay, so what does that future need from me today? How can I show up and contribute to that coming to fruition? And it can be about things that are as simple as like, how do we send email? Does this email feel superaboundy to me? Do I feel abundant and generous when I'm sending this email to my people? And if it's a no, then I'm like, okay, I'm operating from another place within myself. I'm not operating from that visionary part.
I mean, there's such an interesting connection here between the conversations we've had with other leaders, and that in the process of building a connected brand, the first port of call you need to really spend time dwelling in is the self, is being connected to the self and understanding like the source energy, if you will, behind what it is you're creating, but probably more importantly, why you're creating it. Is that essentially what you're finding in your journey with Superabound?
That's really well said, MK. And it is just so much more woo-woo than most business people think. You're like, I'm just selling a thing. No, you're not just selling a thing. Everybody knows you're not just selling a thing. You're selling an experience. You're selling identity. You're connecting with that person on the other side. And in order to do that authentically, you have to start from a connection within yourself. I love the way you stated that.
It's so interesting. And I think like woo-woo is just like a way of like existing for us here at Loop and Tie. We do weekly sessions called quantum harmonization, where we align our energies with one another for an hour each week. I mean, you could do it each day if you wanted to. Our team has the ability and capacity to do an hour each week, but where we align our energies and we align the intention of those energies so that we can be working, like I said, from the inner work that we're doing from ourselves, but so that we're also working in harmony with one another. And so many folks are coming to this realization that that's really where masterpieces originate in what they're building. And with your workshops, it feels to me like some of the most important work you're helping founders, executives, leaders, longtime leaders, first-time leaders, you're helping them get to that inner meaning of why. And I think it's really fun. So let's walk through the framework of Superabound and some of the work that you do to give folks just a bit of a taste around what this inner work should look like, what it can feel like.
We go into it in detail in our book, so you should totally buy our book.
Yeah, 100%.
We will always take a shameless plug, by the way. We're not above it.
Which, congratulations, by the way. Like writing a book, talk about like Superabound, writing a book and being able to bring to life and manifest this artifact to commemorate this time and memorialize all the hard work that you've been working towards, it's no small feat. So congratulations. It's super exciting for both of you.
Thank you. Yeah, but within that, one of the biggest chunks is on vision. And there are three main points to a vision that is worthy. One is that it's big, that it is something that you will likely not even achieve in your lifetime. It's something that's so big, you can find room for many different expressions within. Because if you can, then other people can too. And that's how you can get people on board with your vision, is it's actually inspiring. It's audacious and has room for creativity across many different paths. And what that does for you personally is it allows you to go from founder who's grinding it out to team leader who is inspiring people to public figure who's trying to move the markets, and all the different ways that your role may change over time. You don't need to have a crisis of identity, as so many people do, as they shift the stage, the size of the stage at which they're playing.
Another piece of it is it's something that you should be able to recognize sort of in the microcosm of every important milestone or like goal. We call them lanterns because it's not as triggering of a word as goals can be. But every time you light a lantern, it's a way of expressing that bigger vision in moments throughout your life, so that we don't end up being the type of leaders or business owners or participants in a vision that put on their blinders and forget about the other beautiful parts of life, the other important relationships. So your vision is something that can be expressed in moments all along the journey of your life.
Mm-hmm. And then finally, at least within kind of the framework that we created around it, is it requires you to grow, but not by becoming someone different, by actually becoming more of who you are, by tapping into your calling, your authenticity, your reason for being. We spend so much time at work that if you're working on things that are at odds with your reason for being, what are you even doing? Right? And I think a lot of people realized that over the pandemic, and it is becoming a real force, more so than ever, in why people choose the work that they do, why people go into the careers that they do. We want more than just a paycheck. We want real meaning, which connects beautifully to the idea of a connected brand, because that meaning is what connects us as humans, right? We connect over stories, over shared meaning, over identity, purpose. All of those things bring us together. And if you're doing that within your own pursuit of your vision, it becomes magnetic, right? You kind of harmonize. People can harmonize with you more.
Free energy. It's like, it's just so much easier to live and work when you're actually aligned with what you're up to every day.
What I find so interesting is what jumped into my head, actually, as you were talking about your vision, the word that jumped into my head was your values. Because as you're talking about this, like, so many folks might listen to this and think a vision is a specific product or a service that you are bringing to market. But as I'm hearing you talk about Superabound and the framework that you're bringing out into this world, you're helping folks turn their values into the future state of the world that they would like to see unfold. Is that a fair summary of some of the work that you're working on?
It's a tall order, but yeah, I mean, that is really it. And I mean, that's how you can tell if a leader is really a visionary, is if those values are not just the thing that are up on the wall. They're not just the thing they talk about at the company meeting, but it's like how we live and work is through these values, and it is what we share, and it's how we hire, and it's how we do our performance reviews. Those things are so much more important than I think we give them credit for, because they are really the directors and the way we choose the path forward.
Yeah.
And if you've ever had an employee where you've thought to yourself, I wish I could just clone them. Or if you think that about yourself, that's fine too. You're like, I wish I could just clone myself. I wish there were 10 of me. The answer to those kind of weird questions is in values. Because if you can figure out what is it that makes for a great culture, how do you get the magic done? What makes magic in your teams that you've been on? That's going to sound an awful lot like your values. And we recommend having no more than 5, ideally 3, 4, 5, enough that it's significant, but you don't have to, like, you can memorize them. Because if you're not using your values on a daily basis to make decisions, to, guide how you respond to a person, to a customer, to a product decision, they're not real. And if they're not real, you're not going to be able to clone yourself. But if they are real, you will literally be able to create a culture where the best parts of, your vision for the company, your vision for the team will become how other people are seeing things as well.
It's so powerful, especially for leaders who are surrounding themselves with those to help bring out one of their most precious, most vulnerable aspects of themselves, right? Because you're bringing something out into the world that's from the heart, and you need folks to be an ambassador and take good care of that very precious thing to you, and which in turn requires it to be precious to them. And this is reminding me of vibes, which I know is a strange transition, but like you can pick up good vibes and you can pick up bad vibes. It's just this innate sense that we have about the world around us. You enter in the room, you're like, ooh, the vibes are off. Like that feels a little uncomfortable. But when you put something out into the world, especially in a business context, and I think one of the things we're discovering through this series is that the way to get the vibes right every time, though something that has this magnetic pull to folks in it, is by always using this lens of having your values be the filtration system through which all of the bodies of work that see the light of day come out and into the world. But that's a tough thing to do because it requires time. It requires patience. It requires practice. Like with us moving so fast and folks wanting things out into the world 4 years ago, how do you help build the discipline of patience in the folks that you're working with so that they get it right and that the vibes are always right when they put something out into the world?
Okay, so patience is my biggest challenge.
Same. We're in good company.
Yes. I mean, I meditated for many years. I taught a lot of yoga, and I'm still would not call myself a patient person. But something I think that we have a really unique opportunity to do with people as coaches is actually flow with and follow through when something feels off. So when someone's just feeling some dissonance or feeling uncomfortable, rather than just resisting it, rather than just saying, okay, I just got to work through it, or I change my attitude and like will myself to get my vibes right. Instead of doing that, I really love to take some time with people to find out what's actually there. We have a process. It's in the book. It's not something you have to like exclusively work with us to do. It's a very simple process. It's called healing static. So we talk about static being any internal drama that we all humans have.
It's when the vibes are off.
When the vibes are off because you have bowling balls in your backpack that you were hiking up this mountain with that probably don't really need to be there. We have a process of going through and actually, instead of trying to attack that or dissociate from that, instead actually going in with questions and curiosity, trying to find out what the wisdom is. I like to think that sometimes just as a business owner, sometimes when I'm feeling off, that's my internal marketing director. She doesn't like what's going on. Sometimes it's my internal CFO telling me that this isn't, like, there's actually something that deserves to be examined. And it isn't just a crummy attitude.
Right. Yeah.
So I actually love to really sit with people and ask, what is the wisdom? Why might this feeling be coming up? instead of blasting past it, instead of rushing.
Mm.
I always assume that there's something wise, even if it's a primitive part of my human psyche trying to protect me.
Mm.
And it's such a beautiful way of like always staying on your own side. It's also a tool we use with leaders. If they have somebody on their team that seems to be like a negative Nelly, that person might have some wisdom, because maybe that person is the person who hears from all the customers every time we change something. And they're the one who's receiving all of the emails. And so actually they might have something really important to bring to the table and open up with the team.
Mm.
And if you want to create that psychological safety, that space of belonging, opening up your work environment for all the human emotions that all the humans are going to feel is a powerful way to do that. Because otherwise it's going to be, either agree with me or get the heck out of here. Positive vibes only. Like you also don't want that, because no one can actually have positive vibes only. And so making room for the whole human experience and asking, what is the wisdom here? What's the wisdom in myself? What's the wisdom in my team? What's the wisdom in this space that we're kind of in right now, is a way to be honest and authentic with how everyone's feeling, which is how you can get the best information about how to move forward.
It's reminding me of, so I've started yoga a few years ago, new practitioner. And it's reminding me very much of one of my favorite teachers who actually had us pause and hold position for a while so that we could feel it was uncomfortable. None of us really liked it, but we kept and held it. And so really this was the practice of sitting with the discomfort and exploring all of the nooks and crannies of the discomfort. And as yogis yourselves, I'm sure this is very much part of your yoga practice. And I made this connection not too long ago that athletes actually are some of the best folks at sitting with the discomfort, sitting with the uncomfortability, because that's what 90% of their job is doing. They're sitting in practice. They're working on making the conditions as uncomfortable as possible so that they can be in their peak performance before they go out in real time and start doing these things in a game and in a scenario. But so often in the business world, we do things live. We do things in the moment, and it's super uncomfortable. And if you keep doing things in the moment and the comfort, it's that discomfort is 100% going to be a place you don't want to dwell, because you haven't built up the conditioning to tolerate the discomfort in a way that's productive, right? And we should probably clarify that there's discomfort that's very, very uncomfortable and unhealthy. And then there's discomfort that is productive and helpful as well, too.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you brought up that example, even with athletes, because the way that athletes build up their tolerance for that kind of discomfort is also in how they recover. And business people, we are not good at this generally. We are not good at our downtime. And
refrain from the tisk, 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 but consider yourself tisk.
Everybody does it. It is one of those things, a huge like part of our teaching is the idea of self-investment. We don't call it self-care, because again, I think that has associations of like bubble baths and I don't know, Band-Aid solutions, which I love a bubble bath, but I love the idea of self-investing, because it's something that you are, again, doing today that might even be uncomfortable. It might be uncomfortable to take that half day off that you promised yourself you were going to take, but the compounding returns that you will see in the future if you figure out how to build and be a visionary who also takes the weekend off. That will have amazing returns in the future.
You just blew my mind thinking about recovery and rest, because we're trained and conditioned in this day and age that more is more, and you got to keep hustling, you got to keep grinding. The rise and grind culture is just infused in us as, we're trying to climb the ladder or the lattice, whichever framework you prescribe to. But rest and slowing down is a really important part of your ability to speed up and get better and get stronger at this practice. So if folks want to start adopting a superabound mindset, which I think is what you're helping folks to do, is to just start rewiring some of the neural pathways and break some of the conditioning that we have and how we think and what we're motivated by. What are like one or two mindset shifts? That shouldn't have been a tongue twister, but it definitely was for me. But mindset shifts that folks can implement right now to help them build connectedness with the self.
So I even start before a mindset shift. I would take a moment, like an action shift. Rather than rising and grinding, rise and journal. Rise and sit. Spend your first moments considering what impact you want to have today and how that impact will empower your bigger vision. And what is that lantern you want to light towards that bigger vision? So the mindset shift would be that the thoughts you kind of water, the seeds you plant first thing in the day, are going to be the ones that direct your attention, are going to be the ones that encourage you to be vulnerable when it's not working, rather than tuning out or giving up or just pushing through, but actually being honest with yourself, your team, your partner, whoever it is, that, hey, I'm feeling upset, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling frustrated. This happened to us literally today. This morning I woke up, I wrote down my vision for the day. I was like, here's what it is, here's who I am, here's where I'm going. And at a certain point I was like, Erin, I'm so bummed right now. And she's a master coach, and we actually set a container for us to be able to coach each other, even though we're also married, which is like pretty crazy. And she coached me beautifully. Cool. And like we found a path forward that would not have been there had I just been like, okay, happy face in the middle of feeling really sad, you know? Yeah. So I think that would be the first mindset shift, is actually honor who you are, what you want, and why you want it. Because everything else will then be able to be in relation to that.
Yeah. If I can even just add one thing to that, I remember this was probably 10 years ago. We were teaching a workshop, and we spent this whole weekend thinking about big dreams and big goals and what people really wanted. This is before we had the Superabound framework. But afterwards, someone came up to me after and they said, I have been alive for 34 years and I have never once thought about what I wanted. My life has been so directed by the expectations of my family and my culture and, you know, the way I've been gendered. Like all of this has informed what I thought I wanted or what I thought I was supposed to do. And I've never spent time being with like what my actual desire is. So I know that for many people listening to this podcast, you have a vision, you're a visionary, you know what you want, but really giving yourself some airtime and some space to be with what it is you desire for your life. And if that's tricky for you, something we will often offer our clients is like, think about the legacy you want to leave. Go to your last day that you have on this planet, in this body, and think about what you would be proud to leave behind. And if your life doesn't look like it's helping you create that, that's when it's time to maybe consider how you're going to shift things for you.
That's so fantastic. I resonate so much with that individual who shared that 34 years, they didn't know what they liked. They never asked themselves what they needed. I can tell you the exact moment that I came to that realization in my life. It was at a PetSmart, and I saw a dog bed, and I was like, hey, I like that dog bed. That dog bed feels like something that is really cool. It looks cool. And that moment just was an epiphany for me to realize that I'd been carrying around everybody else's opinions about what I liked and the style that I had, which is such a powerful moment to have, which I know, again, it's a dog bed in PetSmart, but you start to realize, whoa, I stopped prioritizing I never prioritized that space to ask myself, what do I need in this moment? And what do I want in the core of my being? And this is just an example to say that it doesn't have to be complicated, right? Like it doesn't have to be, a life's vision of creating a body of work that, changes the entire world. It can start really small of just like, what's an aesthetic that I think looks nice on a dog bed in the middle of the day at a PetSmart? Like that kind of small question asking to the self then turns into the larger manifestation of your values. And then, of course, your vision and bringing to life the legacy that you want to leave behind.
Absolutely. Because asking that question and listening and following that answer when you can, when it makes sense and it's appropriate to, is how you build self-trust and that deeper relationship with yourself.
Intuition.
Your intuition, your vision cannot come to being if you don't have a really tight relationship with yourself.
Yeah. We often say that a vision is not a place, it's not a thing, it's a practice, right? It's a muscle. Check out those guns. It's a muscle that you have to develop. Where these kinds of things, these little questions like what do I want right now? What does the world need? What can I share? How can I help? These are all the questions that become your practice for being a visionary leader, for trusting yourself, for having that presence in the world to make changes. Because otherwise, like you said at the very beginning, MK, it's just thoughts, and thoughts are powerful. Thoughts are things, but if they only stay there, they don't have their full impact.
And the framing that you've just laid out helps turn those thoughts into action. And as you get better with it, it becomes actions with intention. And it's the interwoven actions with intention that build connected brand experience. But without that space, without that time to truly set aside what is true to me, what speaks to my energetic sources, you're not going to get to that state and that place of creating a connected brand or connected anything, really.
Connected life.
Yeah, I love that. Maybe that's the sequel to Superabound.
MK, I can't wait for your book to come out because the way you're using it's just a mastery of words and the energy behind it. Yeah. I see a book.
Thank you. I would love for this to become a book one day as we just learn along with folks who are smarter than us, who have discovered one piece of the puzzle that is the totality of creating I love the connected life, which I think, again, you guys can steal that for your next follow-up book. And then I'll write something at the beginning of the book to say, connected brand only comes after you've built a connected life. Got to read that first. It's prerequisite. This has been so amazing sharing this space with both of you. Your energies are just so warm and kind. If folks want to get a taste of that, if they want to spend time with you, how can they get in touch? What's the best way to find you?
We've got all things Superabound over at our website, besuperabound.com. And we have a podcast there. Our Instagram accounts, we aren't actually connected from there. So it's Be Superabound on Instagram. But yeah, our book is available for pre-order there, besuperabound.com/book. And that is the place to connect with us.
Amazing. Well, thank you again both so much. Congratulations on the book. I can't wait to dive in and start building that vision that I have for this life and turn it into action.
Thank you, MK.
Thank you, MK.
Such a delight.